Sanya, we are live. You can start speaking, please.
Hey guys, very good evening. This is Sanya Rajesh here, a GMAT aspirant just like all of you, and also currently a student at ScoreLeap. ScoreLeap is proud to introduce Vibhav Parekh, who has recently scored a 740 on his GMAT with a 44 in the verbal section. Isn't that incredible? A quick introduction about Vibhav before we dive into his GMAT journey. Vibhav is an investment professional and also the founder of an edtech startup called Council. He's someone who is obsessed with learning anything and everything that makes the world run. Hey Vibhav, good evening. How are you?
Very well. Thank you so much for having me, and best of luck for your GMAT journey as well.
Thank you. And thank you so much for taking the time out and joining us here today. Being a GMAT aspirant myself, I'm super excited to hear all about your journey. So, I would like to ask you a few questions and
Of
then
course.
we'll open the floor to the audience to ask a few questions as well.
Sure. Of course.
So,
Happy
let's
to.
get started then. So, Vibhav, could you please narrate your GMAT journey to the audience? And being a GMAT aspirant myself, I'm super interested in hearing about it, and I'm sure the audience are as well.
Right. So my GMAT journey began couple of years ago, actually, in 2019, in the middle of 2019, when I decided to, apply to B school. And since then, it's been a tumultuous journey, and it's not as smooth as it could get, given not just because of the pandemic, but some of my initial mistakes that I made, you know uh, in hindsight, because of my own decisions. So cutting down, to just this long story short, um, back last year I got a 690, and I was stuck at 690, and I got a 690 again in June of 2020. And that's when I was hounding different tutors and understanding where I'm going wrong, downloading the ESRs and stuff like that. And eventually, I was fortunate to speak to Kalyan from ScoreLeap, and I remember having a long 1 hour call at 9:30 in the evening, on one of the weekdays, and he was like, I'll give you my coaching for free if you just want that 700. But if you really want to get your score, which I believe is 740, he actually said that, then you must do my classes. So I had an option to take the easy way out, or do this intensive course, and reach where I am. So that led to me joining ScoreLeap, and learning his approach to the verbal section in particular, and fine tuning what I knew from before, adjusting to the new approach, and tackling it in a very different manner from what I did in the previous attempts. And then to again make it more brief, that's eventually this year, after again attempting some, doing the mocks again, and finally getting a center in Pune, I got
Yeah.
the lucky score of 740.
So,
Yeah.
consistently working on your mistakes and improving with
Yeah,
each.
yeah, yeah. So yes, I mean, I'm guessing we will go into the details of each of the
Yeah.
approaches. So
Yes.
yeah, that is one of the key, methodologies in which I approached the section altogether.
Yeah. So, SC was the section that you were weakest in when you
Yeah,
started your preparation. So,
yeah.
how did you overcome that, like mainly?
So SE was very, very dangerous topic for me, because I never ascertained whether I was making the right choice or not, especially for the 700 plus questions in specific. Because my approach was wrong. My probably my no most definitely my way of uh, reading through and approaching a SE question in its entirety was not the way that it should have been, and that's why I consistently performed very badly in SE.
Yeah.
Even with ScoreLeap and with Kalyan, it took me some time to understand and relearn the entire new way of doing SE, the approach, the methods, some of the techniques that Kalyan, is so good at to do, and then hashing it out with the same questions again and again. Even though it did take some time, but it eventually led to the score, because that approach works, and it's consistent, right? So I'm not tying it down to my luck in this situation. Here I'm tying it down to real grassroots fundamental concepts, which
Yeah.
which works. So this route actually helped, and that's how I could finally get the SE ghost out of me.
Yeah, that's amazing. You got a 94% accuracy rate,
Yeah,
which is really incredible. And frankly speaking, SE is one of my weakest topics in GMAT as well. So I've actually started going through the ScoreLeap DIY videos now, which has helped me improve my score a lot. So
right,
hopefully I'll
right.
be able to
No,
reach a
most definitely. I mean,
94% accuracy
it will,
rate.
because SE is a topic that we can tackle much more efficiently, especially with Kalyan's method. At least what I have found is that thankfully I had the weakest spot in SE, and the and Scholar's approach for SE is super 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 time efficient. The most important thing
Yeah.
in the GMAT, it gives us time. So that really helped in balancing out my power, my time in SCR and RC,
Yeah.
which
So,
I couldn't have.
moving on to the next question, could you take me through your reading comprehension journey? I see that you've gotten an 85% accuracy rate, which is something
Right.
that's really difficult to achieve. So, what strategy did you use and how did you tackle these questions?
So RC is it's a very personal approach that actually that which I was following before, because I'm an avid reader, and I've been reading different articles from different topics throughout my career and before that as well. So the content didn't really disturb me. Some people are disturbed by the content of it, but that didn't disturb me. But of course the length does, right? Because there are two passages that are extremely long, right?
Yeah,
So that again eats up my time, even though I could say at home spend about 15 minutes and get each question right, because it's eventually reading comprehension, right?
yeah,
But that's not how it works when you're giving it in the exam. So again here, the approach that ScoreLeap taught me was the fire strategy. I don't know if you are aware of it, or if you've gone through it
yeah,
already, but it's the framework that gives you the power to interpret, and then to react, and then finally eliminate all the fluff that's there in those question choice answer choices. So that speeds you up again. So basically the goal is that we want to do things fast
yeah,
with a consistent approach. Uh, what we usually do is do things fast with an inconsistent approach,
yeah,
which gives us more which gives us more hope towards luck, rather than being sure of being 75% correct or 80% correct, right? So what we
yeah,
need to do is breach that luck factor, and use a consistent approach of trying to solve questions in a speed that actually can balance out all the three parts of verbal. And that so because of that, and because of the RC approach of the fire strategy, which if later on, if the students or aspirants would want to know, I can delve in it more. But
yeah,
yeah, it's primarily that approach that helped me save time and get me going in terms of tackling those questions in the right uh, in the right paragraphs.
So yeah, so efficiency and effectivity, basically. So,
Yeah, yeah.
what about your critical reasoning? A 96% accuracy rate means that almost all of your questions were correct. So, I'm really curious to know about how you went about that.
By not thinking critically, to be honest, because that in my profession of investments and analyzing stuff,
Mm.
thinking critically is actually key.
Yeah,
But if I would think that critically and try and find out 10 different assumptions
mm.
to an issue or a problem at hand, that wouldn't really lead to getting this score. So here critical reasoning for me was, so at least the I understood the concept of what is being asked,
Yeah,
because it's so CR is very how do I put it? It's very specific because it asks you exactly what you need to answer, because it says you need to evaluate, you need to you need to find the assumption, so you know what you need to get out of the 4 line statement that's given to you.
yeah,
So I used up every possible official resource available to, because there's only those many set of questions that they ask, right?
yeah.
Evaluate, assume, XYZ.
Mm.
So solve each of those in entirety, and you can eventually find a pattern as to what you can eliminate easily. So I had a breeze through eliminating 3 out of 5 in each
Yeah,
question. Some of them I could then easily strike off the fourth one,
yeah,
and some of them again played with my time, and if I could still spend some few more seconds understanding or thinking about it, or going back to my diagram that I made for the argument, I
yeah.
would do that. Otherwise I would just pick one and move on to the next.
All right.
So it's those approaches that help doing a lot of official questions, and then indirectly getting a subconscious understanding of what is going to be the answer, help me getting that high score in CR.
So you mentioned that you used each and every official resource available, which
Yeah.
brings me to my next question. What like other books and material did you use for your preparation? And also, how did you keep a tab on the mistakes you made and overcome those mistakes?
So for the official, I used the last guide that was available, the 21. I
Oh,
used official guide 11, official guide 10. I used official guide maybe 16 or 17, the one I had from you know um, from previously.
yeah.
And also some of the a couple of the review books. But primarily I focused on only the official questions. I did not, at least in my last 3 attempts, and the attempts where I got a 690 and a 740, I have not used any material that is outside the official guide scope,
Yeah.
or the material that comes out from the GMAT examination publishing
Yeah.
house. So that was my um, uh, uh, the one stop resource for me. Um, I did use the advanced OG advanced, but this was for my 690. For my 740, I did not use the advanced at all.
Okay.
And in terms of uh, tackling your errors and finding out how to keep a tab of it, so what we at ScoreLeap do is we create an error log, which is extremely exhaustive, as exhaustive as the number of questions
Yeah.
we have to tackle. So that just gives you again bird's eye view of what are the issues that you're facing.
Mm.
um, and so I maintained that in my course of the last year, solving questions, and then immediately getting the, so I would even the questions I got correct, but had a iffy feeling about it, I wouldn't put it on the Excel sheet, and mention why I had an iffy feeling about it, and why and how I would not have it later on. So I would try to put I would actually write messages to myself, not just writing I made this mistake, but I would put
Yeah.
messages saying uh, don't do this next time, kind of ways of trying to self motivate how much as
Yeah.
I can. So I did that, and eventually it does help, because sometimes you just don't.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're exhausted studying, and you don't want to. This is not an exam where this is not like the other traditional exams where you can just keep doing it on and on and on, right?
Yeah.
If
That's
you're not in
true.
the mood, you can't do GMAT because you need
Yeah.
to be in the element. So there are some days where you just don't feel like it. So then you can use your time to understand your error log and review that. So
Yeah.
that really helped me in my course of
So I need to
exams.
start maintaining my error log more diligently then.
Yeah, most definitely you should.
So, how many mock exams did you take on the whole, and also from which website, and what are the main strategies you use during these mock exams?
I used a billion mocks, if I could put that into perspective. But no, so I made the mistakes that what most students would is use mocks from different test preps and
Yeah.
the ones available online, the ones available on the resources available,
Hmm.
and that did help to an extent. There's no doubt about it. But eventually, I realized that it's the GMAT official mocks that made most sense to me, because where I was at 690, so from there to come to 740, I had to rely on for me to get that score. I had to rely on my learnings and whether
Yeah.
I've actually progressed or not, right? And for that to be effective, even everyone else says that the score is only really as close to real in the official prep exams, the mock
Yeah.
exams, because I needed that progress to be seen and make decisions based on that.
Hmm.
In my last year and say the past 18 months, I've just used the official prep mock, the test prep mocks, so the six
Yeah.
that you get, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the 1 and 2 you
Yeah.
get free, and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 you have to pay for. So I
Yeah.
use those, and the 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 process or the method. So I always started with Quant first, but that's a personal choice for everyone that gives the exam. But the strategy that I took was what I've been taught at ScoreLeap,
Yeah.
where we have to tackle so verbal obviously was my weaker section, and so the mocks went fairly very well, as it would be for most of our students, because
Yeah.
that's not the real deal, right? So we're
Yeah.
not
Not
as
as stressed out.
we are not as petrified, or as our heartbeat's not as high. So the mocks always go much better, of course, at least in my case. And I have personally given the 6 mocks 12 times, right? Because I had to do it
Yeah.
again and again because of my 690s and then a
Yeah.
740. Uh, but then it still helps. It helps because you can understand and figure out your timing issues and strategies.
Yeah.
Uh, Especially, I think that that's what really changed in my 740. Like the timing was critical. Like how for my verbal to be bang on in terms of accuracy, I
Yeah.
had to ensure that my timing took happen exactly how it would in my mocks.
Yeah.
In fact, it actually was better than my mock, to be honest. Thankfully, but
Wow.
that was key. So I've used my mocks for my timing, and of course,
Yeah.
if it's the official mocks, and even for the concepts, because
Yeah.
the questions they ask are fairly similar to the ones that you see in the exam, I guess.
Yeah. So the official marks are better take because the reports are also more accurate, right? For those.
Yeah. So yes, I mean, personally, if I were going to give the exam say next year, and I'm
Hmm.
starting off right now, I wouldn't want to
Hmm.
spend I wouldn't want to spend even one mock with the official ones, because I have only 6, right? So
Yeah.
I would use that time to take some of the other really good mocks available
Yeah.
online, and try to assess because there's a lot of evaluation tools available with other prep companies as well.
Yeah.
uh, so I would use that first initially, but the core, when you're at the core of it, and you're just 3 months down the 3 months down the road to get the exam.
Yeah.
The GMAT OG is the official prep mocks are something that I would recommend, and that's what even ScoreLeap recommended, thankfully, because that was not something I knew before. I mean, I
Yeah.
knew per se that everyone knows per se that it's the official prep mocks that are most accurate in terms of the accuracy of getting the score,
Scores.
dependent
Yeah.
on what your skill set is
Yeah.
at that time. So, but not doing other mocks, how critical that is also something that I learned. I mean, it's not to badmouth any other mocks that are available. It's just that
Yeah.
that's something I personally did.
Yeah. So now moving on, my most dreaded section, the quant section. What was your
Right.
approach here? This is something I'm really interested in hearing about.
So the quant actually was also it's not like I personally also, I'm not like the best quant guy there, because
Yeah.
um, I also did it back in undergrad as well, and then after that I did it in my work profession, but we don't really do these uh, do something very different.
Yeah.
So but the concepts are something key
Mhm.
for quant at least. So I would suggest get the concepts right, because I guess every one of us, each one of us has some understanding of length and breadth equals area, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's actually the beauty of GMAT is that it still tackles only that one simple philosophy of area equals length and breadth.
Yeah.
But my takeaway was that um, I got a 47, 48, and then a 49 in my quant.
Yeah.
The I reached, I up moved in my score because of going again back to two
Basic.
things. One is the concepts,
Huh.
basically tackling each concept of each topic very clearly, and doing it the GMAT way, right? I can't do
Yeah.
it. We can't think of it as if we're Indians, then we can't think of it as the engineering way or the 10 standard way of doing math, or finding derivatives of things like that. Some people even do that.
Yeah.
So the GMAT way is what really matters, with the same concept that we are probably aware of, and we know. So I guess going back to your concepts and doing it the GMAT way is something that
Yeah.
will make quant fairly easier than verbal.
Okay. So basically, all about how you learn the basics.
Yeah, it's primarily that, because I mean, what are we tackling in quant, right? We're
Yeah.
tackling simple concepts that are blown out of proportion in terms of the difficulty, right?
Yeah.
There's no doubt that they are fairly difficult questions as well, but then again, it's just you know some these questions are so beautiful in terms of how they are made, that once you do
Yeah.
solve the OG ones, especially the harder ones, you can see
Mhm.
how they're trying to tackle, or how they're trying to question your thinking. And I think that's what helped me, because I understood how, at least some of the ways in which how questions are asked, because
Mhm.
I solved it in such a way that eventually helped me subconsciously find that element.
Yeah.
So that's something that helped me as well.
So now that we've covered most of how you prepared the D-Day, how can you share your exam experience with us, and also uh, suggest what one should or shouldn't do the day before the exam?
Right. So I mean, as GMAT was an arduous journey for me, and that's why I'm here. I want to spread as much wealth of knowledge that I can, so that people don't suffer as I did. But so I had to give the exam in Pune, because I'm based out of Mumbai, but the
Yeah.
center in Mumbai is shut since a while now,
Mhm.
and so I drove down one day prior to go to the city. It's about 200 kilometers from my city. I got in early, checked in, and went to the center as well, one day before, just to see how how it is, and what time do I need to come back, and so that I don't have any issues the next day when I'm actually giving the exam. And I got all of that done, came back. So I was alone, of course, and I needed some snacks to eat in the middle of my exam, so
Yeah.
bought some fruits and stuff like that. So what I would suggest is that, of course, be familiar with your environment. It
Yeah.
was a new environment for me entirely because all my previous attempts were in Bombay, and but familiarizing with your environment, being as comfortable as you can be with
Yeah.
what you're wearing, what you're thinking, what time you're going, what time you want to give the exam. All those things matter really a lot,
Yeah.
and um, you know being as calm about it on that day is as much as you can, because everyone's not no one's calm, let's be honest, right? we're
Yeah.
all we're all
That's
painfully in stress as to
Yeah.
we get that score that we so are dreaming about. But
Hmm.
yeah, staying calm. So you do these things before that to help you stay as much
Yeah.
calm as you can be. So I drink coffee. So I drank. Luckily there was a Starbucks, so I had a lot of
Hmm.
I had a coffee before the exam. So whatever helps you, do it exactly that way, right before the exam. And I think there's no. There are many people who say that you should not give a mock, or you should give a mock one day prior to the exam day.
Yeah.
I think it's more personal in terms of how you are, as whether you whether you are confident, and you just need to
Yeah.
you need more relaxation before the exam, or someone who needs that extra push, and wants to be as close to exam ready as he can or she can. So it's personal, and I mean depends on your strategy.
So
So that's
figuring
something
out
that,
what suits you best is important.
yeah, I mean there's no real right or wrong to it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So now that we've understood the whole GMAT journey, there are a few other general questions I would like to ask you.
sure.
So, when a person decides to start their GMAT preparation, what are some things that you would advise them to keep in mind before starting?
So something before they start.
Hmm. Like, why?
um right, so maybe one of the key things is to diagnose your understanding of the exam. So which is also done by by nearly everyone. Even the official guide gives you the diagnostic exam. So that would
Yeah,
be one efficient way of understanding where you are at on day zero, uh, and strategizing accordingly, um, and then doing your course of studying the material and solving questions. But yeah, getting a diagnostic done in the beginning would be fairly important according to me. Again, as I mentioned earlier, this is not an exam that I thought was dramatic in terms of the theory behind it.
yeah,
Solving questions is the goal is not to solve the questions in a week's time, right? We don't want to finish the official guide in a week's time. We want to
yeah,
use it effectively, because that's the only thing we have. It's like the holy book. It's like the only
yeah,
thing that is going to help us uh, exceed our goals for your score. So I would suggest not solve everything in one go. Take it, each question is important in the official
yeah,
guide. So solving even 20 questions on the essay, I would, even though I mean ScoreLeap at least has a rule that 20 questions means less than 15 minutes of
yeah,
solving time. So that's tremendously low. But those 15 questions, then you need to take about 45 minutes with each question, right? And
yeah,
then trying to understand each question's concepts. There are
mm,
four questions, there are four answer choices in an ST or a CR or RC that are wrong. So
yeah,
why is each wrong, right?
yeah,
Why have we eliminated each of them? So if we just blindly say that we've got 80% accuracy without actually going through the details of those questions that we got right, apart from
yeah,
the ones we got wrong, it defeats the purpose, because we're not going to get those same questions in the exam. We're going to get
yeah,
questions that are going to be uh, mirroring them in terms of the philosophy and the strategies that we learn. But again, to get that, we need to dive down deep into those concepts, which will
Yeah.
come through practice and time, not by solving it like
Yeah.
you're at a train station going
So
you
really
know
understand what you're doing before going into
yeah
solving it.
so like
Yeah.
take some time and do it only when you're in a good mood, or do it only when you're
Yeah.
not you know when you're stress free, right? You need to enjoy solving. The only reason why I could give it so many attempts was because I somehow still enjoyed solving these questions and finding some kind of some kind of um, uh,
Frustrated.
new ways of solving it,
Yeah, yeah,
especially correctly. So that's what kept me going. So but I only did it when I was probably late in the night or early in the morning, when my mood was fine and I was not stressed with work.
yeah,
um, and if I wasn't in the mood, I wouldn't really solve questions. So
yeah,
uh, don't be yeah, I mean, everyone wants to give the GMAT for B school, right? Otherwise there's no real it's not really a
yeah,
hobby for 99.9% of. So yeah, everyone has deadlines. I understand that there's round one coming, round two coming, but
yeah,
again, you'll make the same mistakes I did by being in a rush
yeah,
and doing it repetitively, which is not the sanest idea.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, how did ScoreLeap come into the picture for you? And also, what is one piece of advice or a tip that you received during your training at ScoreLeap that really helped you change the way you approach the GMAT questions?
As I mentioned in my beginning, the Scully came to me in picture last year when
Yeah,
I was struggling with my 690, and it just couldn't get past there.
yeah,
Even after getting, as usual, 700 plus marks scores in the official marks. So I definitely knew that I was making mistakes somewhere, and I definitely knew that there was room for improvement in my verbal
yeah,
and quant, but more in verbal. And then that's why I spoke to Kalyan, and he debriefed me on his way of solving, and
yeah,
how there needs to be a dramatic shift in the way I approach verbal altogether.
yeah,
Even though prior to this my RC was very strong prior, but again, just be having one thing strong and failing on the others is not going to be as you know
yes,
lucrative. So that's when the team came into the picture, and I started relearning and learning new concepts which were different. And answering your second question on the how it helped me change. So
yeah,
Wobble was a no-brainer. Um,
mm,
the SC really helped me with my timing.
yeah,
It took me time, even but thankfully Kalyan was very patient. It took me time to even understand his concepts, because I somehow, for me, I couldn't correlate the
yeah,
two together, right? The concepts and the questions. For me it was difficult, but actually it's not that difficult, to be honest. With his
yeah.
methodology, it's fairly very simple, but for me it was
So
always a
that
little.
changed the game for you.
Yeah, that really did change the game,
Yeah,
because that changed the game in terms of my timing. So I had that X amount of time that I could now put into CR, which I was good at, and at RC, which I was good at,
yeah,
and not have to basically do my last six questions
in a
like
hurry.
in a hurry, which just ruins everything, right? So
Yeah.
I was in a good place because of my timing, because of my concepts, the new concepts I learned at ScoreLeap.
All right. So, lastly, do you have any tips or advice for our audience who might be taking their exam for the first time, such as myself, or anyone aiming to retake the exam and get a better score?
Um, I mean, I've already shared some of the general tips, but um, I would say that don't be disheartened at anything that you get, or even if you're a retaker. Uh, be very strong and
Yeah,
solid about what you want to achieve, and if you believe that you can do it, don't stop, right? Like that's what I did. I
yeah,
didn't stop because I knew I could do it. I knew I had it in me. uh,
yeah,
and eventually it pays off. So this, again, as I said, don't treat this exam as a traditional exam.
Yeah.
Treat it very differently. Treat it like uh, you're doing something entirely different,
Yeah.
and wherever you learn your concepts from, there are there's ample amount of resources. uh, I've done a lot of them, so you would imagine. But so use whatever works for you, and use it well, and use it effectively in each of the questions that you solve, and that should get you at least uh, ready for the real deal, for the real exam.
Yeah.
And only once you're really ready, go for the exam, or do the official mocks, because we have only 6 mocks, right? So
Yeah.
don't say give three of the 6 mocks without even knowing all of the concepts in SC, right?
Yeah.
Don't do such. I mean, that such mistakes shouldn't be made,
Yeah.
and you should be good to go, because otherwise it's fairly basic in terms of, again, the process.
Yeah. All right. So now we'll be opening the floor for the audience in case they have any questions. So you can go ahead and ask your questions.
Do you want me to read the questions, or will you be
I'll do it.
sure?
So Arvind is asking, how much practice did you do after finishing the concepts?
So after finishing the concepts, I would so it if I finish the entire SC, I would only do the entire SC strategy, or the entire concept book, and then start solving all the official guide questions. So maybe, at least in ScoreLeap, what they would do is we'd be learning concepts on different days, and related to those concepts there will be some questions from the official guide. uh, but once we finish the entire set, once we have finished the entire theory behind the SC and the tips and tricks and stuff like that, what we then do is tackle the official guide 10, um, and then go through each question. So there'll be 144. I'm not exactly correct, but I guess you would be knowing. I don't remember. There are 144 questions in the official guide 10 or 11. So we do
Yeah,
all of
11
those.
has 138 and 10 has 250, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, so we do each of those 138 questions and compare it to, so not do each of those 138 together, but we do 50, and then
Yeah.
another 50, and then another block. So we do them
Yeah.
in blocks and evaluate each question with the answer choices that ScoreLeap gives you. Or in your case, it would be whichever strategy that you follow, comparing it that with that. So after finishing concept, I did a lot of practice to answer your question, like a lot, like all of the official guide questions I solved.
Yeah. Thank you. So what was your mock score when you booked the exam?
My mock score when I booked the exam, so this would be a little difficult to answer, because I had given the mock before as well. So my mock will be biased towards the more positive score, because I had some of the questions already known, and I would already know some of the answers, even though I would solve it and do it as per an official exam. So my official scores would be in the range of 770 or 760 or 780. But again, this putting a disclaimer out there that I've already done these exams before, because of my previous attempts, and there are
Yeah.
only 6 mocks that we have. So yeah, use them prudently. Yeah.
Thank you. So did you rely on guesswork for few questions in the final exam?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. So, you know, eh, I the for verbal, I had to do each SC question within 60 seconds. If I didn't, if I couldn't do it within 60, I would just mark something and move ahead.
Yeah.
I would just guess and move ahead. So, similarly for CR, if I couldn't do something in 2 minutes 20 seconds, I would mark it and move ahead. If I couldn't do something in RC in under, if I couldn't do the entire long passage plus a question in the next amount of time, I would move ahead. So yes, to answer your question, I did rely on guess for say maybe a couple of questions.
So you're not
Input,
wasting
input,
time on doing that one
input
question.
content over. Yes, yeah, yeah. So that's a mistake I'd made in my previous attempts where I would, like we all have that inherent trait in us to try and solve each question,
Yeah.
right? Because that's what we want to do. We want to solve each question, even if it's the first question.
Hmm.
And if it's like say some, I don't know how they work, right? But sometimes you might get a very difficult question as your first question, and it's like maybe it's a
Yeah.
uh, it's that one of those, what is it called, which is not counted in your score.
The experimental
Yeah,
questions.
experimental. I mean,
Yeah.
if it's an experimental, right, and you're just spending 4 minutes on it, so
Yeah.
that ruins everything for me, and that's how this, the timing and everything goes off. So
Yeah.
the key is to not GMAT game you. You need to understand that they're doing it on purpose. Like,
Yeah.
in the mocks, I would very easily guess and move on because that's not really going to,
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
going to get a printout at the end of the day saying this is my score, right?
Yeah.
With what we really want at the center. Um, but then I did this in my this final attempt. I did guess and I did, save precious time in a few questions in the first and second half of my exam.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. How do I get over my fear of mocks? That brings me a bad score and moves my confidence.
I had to get over bad scores in my official exams. So I think mocks is something that you can easily, manage. So uh, mocks are good if you get a low score because that makes you want to, understand where you're going wrong.
Hmm.
Um, I I was at a position and a point where I didn't know where I was, and I didn't know where I was going wrong, and I was confused all my time understanding how do I, get my score. And I was very low in confidence. But don't let all these things deter you. Uh, you know, as I said, if you know you have it in you, just tackle
Hmm.
it and use the mocks as your only medium of being of gaining confidence and
Yeah.
tackling your strategies and tips and tricks and everything. Just put everything out there in the mocks because there's no other testing ground for you, right?
Hmm.
Those That's the real main testing ground for you. So if you need to get past the main, we need to at least test everything beforehand in those 6 exams that we get uh, on it. So I hope that helps answer the question, but just don't worry, it's a mock. Like you're bound to get bad scores. I'm telling you, if you want, you all can see all my past mocks and how bad I've scored. So it's fairly uh, I mean, I've got enough. Like, yeah, it. Don't worry about getting a bad score.
That's good. So, did you spend extra time on consecutive questions requiring guesswork, working on the algorithms?
Did you spend extra time on consecutive questions requiring guesswork? If I'm getting your question correct, if you're asking me whether there were 2 questions that I guessed consecutively, if I did that or not, let me think through this. I don't think that happened in my case in my mock in my official exam, the final one. So I did not do. I didn't have to guess 2 questions consecutively. If that answers the question.
Did you create timestamps on the exam or did you generally not face any timing
This
issues?
is a fantastic question. Actually, I did not mention this. So I knew timing was very critical, but the
Yeah,
way the GMAT gives you that timer, you need to be a mathematician to understand how many questions you finished and how much time do you have left. Right? It's not
yeah,
very. It doesn't tell you how much time you spent on each question. Right? It doesn't mention that.
yeah.
It just tells you how many minutes are left for the entire
Hmm.
exam. So for me, then of course for verbal it's not as simple as uh, you know the the questions you split into two, into like half of them, and that has to be completed in the first 30 minutes. Because if you say get 0 RCs in the first 18 questions, and you only are inundated with SC, then you need to be much faster. You need to finish everything in the first 30-40% of the time, right, depending on how much time you allocate to SC. So so yes, timing, you guys need to really consider how you are comfortable doing it. So for me, I kept until the last day, kept thinking, how do I keep track, because I knew I would keep seeing the timestamp that was there on the this, yeah, and that was my way of doing it. But there's different ways of doing it. Maybe you can make, so I tried even making notes in on the book that they give you, that I've done. So what I did was I wrote SC, RC, and CR, and I said I finished 3 RCs, 4 CRs, and 4 SCs. So I would keep updating that log. So if I've done like if I've done 6 CRs and 6 RCs, I know that I'm going to get another 8 SCs and 6 CRs, or maybe 3 CRs. You get 9 to 10 CRs, I think. I'm not sure. So that way I would get a understanding of how much more is to come. So I would use that as a way of seeing whether that much time is enough or not. So I would use that as, so that's what I did as well in the exam.
All right. Did you use the advanced verbal book?
I have used the advanced book that the official publication gives you, that includes both quant and mobile. So yes, I have used it, but I have not used it in the last 6 to 9 months, where for my this attempt, I don't even remember the questions there. Some of them are fairly difficult, and I was more keen on at least getting my timing and my basics correct before I move on to getting an 800, which I didn't want. So yeah.
I've been struggling at reading comprehension and critical reasoning past 700 level. Any suggestions?
I mean, for CR, I would say, depending on how much time you're spending on it, and whether so for CR, very simple, you diagram it. Everything leads, X leads to Y for every CR, argument that is there. So just diagram that, in the sense that make uh, symbols, and make and paraphrase very briefly, and mention what the story of the CR question is in that 50-55 seconds that will actually take you to do it. So do that for each of those questions, and you should be in a much better position to eliminate answer choices depending on your strategy that you're using. It helped me, because I earlier wasn't making those diagrams for all my questions. I would do it only intermittently. But once I did it for each question, diagramming each question, I could see that it helped me, not even in the simple questions, but even in the difficult ones. So so the level 700 level questions also would then become um, fairly similar in the sense of how you tackle it. So do the diagramming, try doing that writing of the passage in a very adept manner, and that should help you tackle some of the answer choices. For RC, it really depends on how you tackle it. I mean, if you are reading through the entire argument, and then making short, very brief adept notes in your in the book that you get, and then finding out what the so the initial meaning of the passage, the main idea of the passage is always in the first paragraph, in the first sentence, or in the second paragraph, first sentence. So some of those things really help you tackle some of those questions. So I think relooking at what strategy you're using, and very clearly understanding that I have to tackle this question this way, and there's no two ways about it. That should help you then moving ahead.
Do you read The Economist or any science publications in general in order to get acquainted with tough reading comprehension passages?
I read them out of passion and out of interest, but
Yeah.
per se for RC, or in fact for the last maybe 6, 9, 12 months, I've not even read any of these publications, apart from news articles and stuff like that, because of no time and because of other reasons. But it's there. I have read a lot that for especially in my initial days, that reading through these economics passages and all of those things help. It helps you not be afraid of these complicated words that come to you. That's the
Yeah.
whole idea behind suggesting that you read these things.
Yeah.
So the point is, the questions that they ask are very basic, in the sense that they'll tell you that you need to find out what is the passage suggesting
Yeah.
XYZ, right? You just need to. Why do we bother about what is some complicated word? You just need
Yeah.
to go to that complicated word in that RC passage and read the sentences ahead of it and behind it, and those
Yeah.
are fairly basic. They are again same: X leads to Y, or Y does not give you this, or X does not give you that. So then it's just a matter of matching the puzzle.
Yeah.
So if you don't have the time, you don't need to really read all that. Just don't worry about those complicated words.
And as ScoreLeap tells you, understanding the passage is less important. Understanding the question
Yeah,
is more important.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like, I mean, the fire approach, where you are spending more time with the question than the passage.
Yeah.
You're just making a framework for the passage, and that's about it. And then you just bother about the questions.
Yes. How much time did you take to read reading comprehension and answer per question of reading comprehension?
So for the RC short passages, I would take 2 minutes to frame to make my framework, where I would make a synopsis of each paragraph. And for a short passage, it takes about 2 minutes for me. And answer per question for RC, about 90 seconds would be my sweet spot. And some of the simpler RC questions I could solve in under 60 seconds, depending on how um, you know difficult it is.
Yeah. Depends on the
Yeah,
question.
yeah.
How did you prepare 1 month before the exam?
For 1 month before the exam, I was fairly aware that, so I had not booked the exam date. Just I booked the exam 15 days before I could, because there was no availability anywhere.
Yeah.
But I was fairly confident that I was going to give the exam between X to Y dates.
Hmm.
Uh, and I prepared exactly how I would, even now, is keep solving questions from the official guide, resolving questions from the official guide, and re-resolving questions from the official guide, which some of them I will still not be able to answer, to be honest. Because these are some um, there there are some ways of tackling these questions.
Yeah.
And so that was one where I would solve a lot. uh, but again, I would solve in time periods that would
Hmm.
uh, not be, I would not be enforcing 100 questions on
Yeah.
me every day. It would be a little of RC, little of CR, little of little of Quant, little of DS, a little of everything each day.
Hmm.
uh, and of course, I'd give a mock every weekend. And
Yeah.
this is ScoreLeap's method, or I don't know, Kalyan's method. But I gave I don't know if he'll kill me if I tell the world, but I did five tests consecutively before the exam. So I would
Yeah.
I to just be like as comfortable as someone can be. I gave my exam on a Monday or a Tuesday. I gave my exam on a Tuesday, and so the 6 days before that, except for the Monday, I didn't give the exam because I was in Pune. I was just driving down there. But the other 5 days, I gave exams consecutively.
Okay.
So yeah. So,
How to how to be prepared for the arithmetic section?
so basically, even if you pick up the official guide, they have a lot of the concepts behind it. So again, for quant, depending on how much prior knowledge we have, that's really how to gauge how we can how we can progress ahead in quant.
Okay.
I hope that answers the question.
Yes. So I think we're done with all the audience questions.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Vibhav, for joining us on a Saturday evening. And it really did help me a lot. So I think it's helped all the other GMAT aspirants over here. And thank you, ScoreLeap and GMAT Club, for helping us arrange this enriching session. And thank you, audience, for joining us. I hope this session has helped all of you just as much as it's helped me. All the best for your GMAT exam. And guys, please make the best use of all the DIY GMAT courses by ScoreLeap. The entire sentence correction section is free, so go check it out. Team, can you please upload the link?
Guys, if it's free, definitely use it. I didn't have that lucky opportunity, but I'm super happy that it's there, and I would most. I mean, there's no two ways about it. Just use it.
Yeah.
You'll be spellbound by.
I can
It's all
already see the improvement in my SC. I've been using it for about 2 weeks now, and I can already see the improvement.
Yeah, imagine. I saw it after a much longer time than 2 weeks, and I'm still vouching for it because it's so good. So if you can do it in 2 weeks, I mean, you're going to fly in terms of your score.
So, bye, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great weekend. Thank you, Vibhav, again.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Take care, everyone. Best of luck.
Bye.